Danganronpa is a very interesting series. A very interesting series, and I really like it. Oh, hey, look, it's my spot. The game's about high school students who get trapped together and are forced to kill each other, and they have trials to figure out who among them is the killer. That's a very surface level explanation, but I'm gonna assume you already know what Danganronpa is, and if you don't, one of the reasons why Danganronpa became so popular is because of its colorful cast of characters. There's a large variety: loud, shy, snotty, horny, kind, naggy, etc. On the surface, many of them seem pretty one note, but when you hang out with them, they reveal layers and you see that they're a lot deeper than they first appeared. The characters are Danganronpa's strongest aspect. It's the reason why Danganronpa 2 is my favorite, since I think the cast is the best out of all the games. And that's why I'm using it as an example in comparison to the cast in Danganronpa 3. By the way, I'm going to be spoiling these games like a pair of pants belonging to someone with urinary incontinence, so be warned. Let's start this analysis by looking at the cast and how their stories and characteristics are handled. When you play through the main campaign, the characters are mostly just trying to cope with the fact that they had to kill each other, and how they generally handle it in their own ways. This is where most of the surface level characteristics are at full display. Kazuichi's constantly freaking out. Mikon is acting like a used doormat, like one of those ones with like a pun on it. Banana Girl's very mean, and so on and so forth. Not to say they're always like this. There's more sides to them as the game progresses, like witnessing the development of Fuyuhiko going from a little guy with a hot temper to a more respectable little guy after his girlfriend died and him nearly meeting the same fate. But many of the characters, you're going to find out more about them via these free time events. Makes sense for all intents and purposes. These guys are just kind of here to die and act as a mystery to solve. The personality is there just to make the world feel more real in general, so you get more attached to these plot devices. In these events, we speak to these characters and generally find out more about their past, which usually ties to why they got into their ultimate talents to begin with. I think these backstories are generally what makes these characters feel the most real. Most of them, I stress, are grounded in some form of reality. Take Nekomaru for example. He's a big guy with lots of muscles. He yells a lot and likes shitting to a concerning degree. His talent is also the ultimate team manager. He's good at leading teams. When you first hear this, you might think he became a team manager because, he excelled at any sport he participated in, and now he's passing his knowledge along to others. But no. As you hang out with him, you actually discover that Nekomaru has heart disease. He physically can't play sports, otherwise he'll most likely suffer from cardiac arrest. So instead, he acts as a manager, teaching others how to play and work as a team, and go to tea parties and all that fun stuff that sports people do. He's like Mike Wazowski from Monsters University. So despite his over-the-top design and personality, his backstory is very realistic. I wouldn't be surprised if there was many people out there who greatly related to Nekomaru, having the skills for a job, but due to medical illnesses outside of their control, they can't do it. Let's look at another character like Mihiru. Now, unlike Nekomaru or literally every single character in the entire franchise, she's probably the most down-to-earth out of all of them. The way she acts, talks, even her talent is low-key compared to everyone else. The most she has to like a gimmick is that she's kind of traditional mindset. She's tough on guys. The guy protects the girls and scolds them when they get rowdy, or don't aim correctly in the toilet seats when going to the bathroom. Seriously though, if you're not able to aim the head correctly, just sit down and do your business. Do you know how many times I had to clean piss off the floor of the public restroom? Too many. My hands are forever stained. Anyway, we listen to her backstory and find out that she's hard on guys because her father was a deadbeat, never really helped around the house when the mother was away. Once again, something I feel like many people could relate to. Of course, not all the characters are like this. Sonia is a literal princess, and Bekiyama's like a lifetime service to babyface over here, but they still keep them grounded to an extent. Like Sonia, by the end of her free times events, she basically breaks down and expresses her desire to return home, which, yeah, if anyone was put in a death game, they probably feel the same way. And Peku, while being a badass sword wielder, most of her free time events are just her trying to learn how to be more sociable, like smiling without it being awkward and learning how to ask someone on a date. So even the weirder characters tend to have very down-to-earth motives or stories to them. Even if you don't relate to them, it's easier to sympathize with a character when the problems they face feel real. Many of the characters were written wonderfully in Danganronpa 2. And then you enter Danganronpa V3 and its characters are all like... Let's take a look at Ganta, who basically is the big strong dude of this game. We meet Ganta for the first time and he thanks us for not being scared of him, and that he wishes for himself to become a true gentleman. He also talks about how when he was younger, other kids were scared of him, so he spent a lot of time alone, and that's why he became interested in bugs. Alright, seems pretty normal so far. A gentle giant he is. And then you discover that he got lost in the woods and was raised by wolves, which is why he speaks like a Cro-Magnon. Not only that, but he's also ludicrously strong. Like, he's able to lift a manhole cover with just 2 of his fingers. Ryoma was a really good tennis player that was invited to some mafia underground tournament, beat the people there. The mafia slaughtered his family and girlfriend, so he went over and started chucking steel balls at their heads, and then got arrested and put on death row. Quite the But the intense backstory for a tennis player. Yonev just like accidentally broke his TV while playing Wii Sports Tennis because he forgot to put the strap on and now he's just like really sad about it. Yeah, as crazy as some of the characters in Danganronpa 2 got, these guys really take it to the next level. There's also some characters that are more directly Flanderized, like Teru was a general pervert in Danganronpa 2, and then here in this game, Miyu is basically just porn with legs. Beku was a loyal servant to one person, while Kurumi ruled a country because her master told her to. The free time events are also different in what you learn about the character. They are much more over the top. Back to Kurumi, when you go through her free time events, you basically learn that she can do any task 100% perfectly that she is asked. But in the final event, you learn that she struggles with one thing, and that's just one very specific dish. Nothing broad like she struggles with seafood or something. Nah, it's just this one dish. Not to say that previous games didn't have its more lighthearted free time events, like Ibuki. She's not that deep of a person. Her free time events are basically just her trying to help Hajime in her own weird way. But even if it's not deep, it's still grounded. It's not like she's trying to feed him her hair or anything. Probably tastes very oily. Another point I want to go over is the third cases of these games. Danganronpa has had pretty notorious third cases in that they're generally not that well written. Case 2-3 especially, probably many people's least favorite case in the entire series because the murder plot just doesn't make a lot of sense, and Mikan's motive was that she was affected by the despair disease, which made her remember that she was a remnant of despair. In other words, they completely changed her personality just to get the case to work. Well, in V3, they do the same thing, but it's even more outrageous. Karekio, who before this point was very calm and generally level-headed, but in this case he does a complete 180 and reveals that he's actually a mass serial killer that killed girls because he's wanted his sister to have friends in the afterlife. His motive is batshit, not just for the killing for his dead sister thing, but that when he killed his first victim, it was the perfect murder. Nobody would have been able to solve it, but he goes through the second murder anyway because he just really wanted to do that plan. You guys don't understand. He was proud of it. It's incredibly forced, but it's third case, and the third case needs a second murder no matter what. Karekio also has like a complete 180, much like Mikan, but like everything else, taken to the next degree. For one, you discover that he loves his sister, like sexually. He's very incestual like that, and throughout the case, he switches to pretending to be his sister, which is kind of another element that's shared between these cases. Characters acting out of character. Celeste is calm until she's not. Mikan is meek until she's not. And Karekio is nice and reasonable until he's not. But unlike the last two, it's clear that Karekio was purely designed for the sake of this twist. He has a mask to cover the lipstick. He's constantly talking about human beauty, which is clearly just simply there to lay the seeds for this moment. What we see before us isn't really a character. It's a plot twist. Everything about him is explicitly designed for this one moment in the game. Basically, the characters in V3 and their personalities, backstory, free time events are all taken and cranked to 15. And I'm pretty sure that was done intentionally. Okay, V3 endgame spoilers. We discover that everything we know is fake. Our backstories, our situation, even the personalities are a fabrication made up by Danganronpa team. And that Danganronpa V3 is actually the 53rd installment of Danganronpa. So in universe, Danganronpa has been going on for a very long time, which means that the writers probably started falling into traps that most long-running shows do. The Monocubs are the most obvious example, adding more mascots purely for the sake of keeping things fresh, like an apple in the sun. But they also do it in somewhat more subtle ways, one of those being how the characters are written. As mentioned before, some characters and their attributes from previous games are just blasted tenfold here. And of course, there's the third case of the game. Once again, it's clear that the whole thing is just a massive exaggeration. Like, you can almost see it as something going through seasonal rot. It really fits the moniker perfectly. There's also plenty of other examples, but I think you get the gist of the argument I'm trying to make here. Now, this does lead into the whole just because you make it shit still makes it shit, which, yeah, that's true. But there's two main points why I think it works here. One is that it's trying to show what would happen if Danganronpa just kept going and going and going, reaching to the point where the series is basically just running on fumes, much similar to something like The Simpsons. And two, it still generally is well written. As crazy as things get, I still do like the characters. They're not like unbearable. The cases are still generally fun to solve. The story is still very engaging. When it does make things intentionally bad, it's mostly superfluous stuff. The Monocubs are annoying, but not to the extent that would make anyone stop playing. The characters are very simplified and somewhat one note, but they're also still generally entertaining. The story makes no sense, but that was done so you notice something is up before the big reveal, where they themselves mention the plot holes. The game is still good where it matters most, while still being able to get its point across, which I think is why it really works. Overall, Danganronpa V3 I think is a very unique game in how it tackled the whole series going on for too long approach, and the way it used flanderized characterization was just one way it accomplished that. Honestly, I could have taken any aspect of Danganronpa and used it as an example of what Danganronpa V3 was trying to accomplish with its story, but I felt like using the characters was an easiest way to demonstrate that, since they're the most prominent aspect of these games. Danganronpa V3, whether you think it was good at doing what it was trying to accomplish or not, I think we can all agree that it was incredibly memorable. Unlike Tak. Who remembers Tak?